Good. Welcome. We are very sorry for the massive delay today. We had some technical problems. We are still not used to this, but that will change for the future. So, welcome to the proper second podcast of Piano Battle. And Andreas, how are you?
I'm good.
You're at home, I guess. It looks like. Have you recovered? Our topic today is the Grand China Tour we had this year. A fantastic experience, I think, at least an absolutely new experience, being on tour for 2 months, basically exactly 2 months, 27 concerts in 27 cities within China. Have you recovered?
Yeah, I think it was 9 weeks when I'm right. So
Yeah.
it was even more than 2 months. I mean, and um, yeah, I think recovered. I mean, there are two things like on a tour like this. I mean, the first thing is, of course, it's exhausting because you play every second day, third day, whatever. So 27 shows not a is not a walk in the park. But yeah, you didn't know that I know these kind of expressions. No, no, you are surprised. Yeah, no, I prepared for this podcast, of course. And no, it's not a walk in the park. And on the other hand, of course, I mean, going on a tour like this, is also quite convenient in other things. Like, for example, coming back now home means like, okay, what do I want to eat? Where do I get food? Where do I get food? And this was like a really challenge for me now to find out what kind of food, because before it was like, okay, yeah, you choose and then you order, and that was of course great. No walking with the dog and so on. So I mean, there are quite a few convenient parts on touring, I have to admit. And so I want to turn this question, like recover, more into this overcome the gap somehow. When I arrived, the first few days in Berlin, I felt like an alien. I look. It's your body is still not there. It's like after 9 weeks is something. Of course, I see my hood. I see my hometown, but it's like, okay, this is where I live. I mean, it's really something like, yeah, it's really something like you need some time to, or at least I needed a week or even a bit more to be really back home. And yeah, that is, I think, the more surprising part, or not surprising, but the more interesting part than recovering. How's about you?
Yeah, it's different because I'm not in Berlin yet. I'm still here in Asia, well, Southeast Asia. I'm in Singapore with my partner, and so I'm still not really at my usual home in Berlin. So this big cultural change hasn't yet taken place. So in that sense, that is different. But I understand totally otherwise what you say about suddenly having to make all decisions again, and not just the decisions, but actually the actual action. You have to go somewhere. You have to. Nothing is organized for you. Yeah, that is. Well, you have all the choices again. It was once you got used to it. It was very convenient not to have choices for all
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
mundane things. It was tiring and frustrating at times, but if you were in a good mood, it was also easier. You just had no choice. And the rhythm every day, the same things. But maybe we should start a little bit to explain how this tour came about. I mean, we just to remember, of course, we started Piano Battle in Asia, in Hong Kong, a good decade ago, and then we started outside Hong Kong. We started playing in China. Our first few shows were in China, then in Taiwan. So we are familiar with playing in China in a way, and we're familiar with the cultural differences. Some of the concert halls we played for the, I don't know, third or fourth time. Um, I think that was in a way nice to come back to these cities from my point of view, but it felt still different just because of the scale. We had a much bigger team. I mean, we played the first big concert we played, I think, in 2014 in Shanghai and Guangzhou. I don't know if you remember. Those were the first concert in the big halls with 1,500, 1,800 seats. And that was still just the two of us. We had to explain every time the show to the local team. We had to go through the lighting design, through all the technical run through. I had to explain the same thing to the sound guys. In that sense, it was harder work, but also very exciting. It was for us, I think, the first time we had these kind of halls and these kind of audiences and these kind of audience reactions and signing sessions almost as long as the show and all these experiences. And then once we had an agency, a first agency, we started to get these longer tours with 10, 12, 14 concerts, which already felt different. What would you say for you is the biggest difference between those tours of maybe 12, 14 concerts, I think 14 was the longest in China, to this twice as long tour?
Yeah, I try to follow when you say like, okay, it was already different, the tours with 12, 14 shows compared to the early beginnings. Yeah, I think it doesn't feel like a big difference, because like if you have 12 shows, it's still a tour, like let's say 3 weeks, and we had these 3 weeks tours then from 2015 on, also in the US, or 2016 on. So I think 3 weeks tour with 12 shows is less different than, of course, 9 weeks tour with 27 shows, because psychologically, I think when you start a 3 weeks tour with 12 shows, I mean, the first few shows are kind of, adjusting into this tour mode. You're excited, you're very well prepared because you go very well prepared into the tour. And then once the tour starts, you have, I mean, how to say, of course, we had also pianos to practice and so on, but everything is not exactly like before. How to prepare, I mean, is how to say, like, I mean, the concentration also, I would say at home is a little bit like, it could be a bit more focused on that sense, like, okay, I'm preparing for the tour. Once you're on the tour, then it's okay, maybe yesterday this was a bit inconvenient or inconvenient, this bar in Schubert or whatever, so I have to look at this. It's reacting on things. It's not preparing. Psychologically is different. So what I want to say is, like, the 27 shows is psychologically not only a bigger mountain, but you don't know what to look for. I mean, like, when you look for, okay, when is the Bergfest, when is the time where we are in the
midpoint.
The midpoint. It's so long to reach this midpoint that it doesn't make sense to make a countdown for yourself, because I mean, it's so in a way, I think what was now really different is to find out how to make these 27 shows small, or how to live with this, like how to feel like, okay, it's just like, okay, it's another show. And I remember you were less counting than me. Like, I was more like, okay, now this is show 9 already, so like 9, 18, 27, so it's already 1/3. And you are like, okay, no, I just look for the last 5 shows or something, and then I start, like, okay, doing my countdown. It's different. I don't know, it's very long.
Yeah, I remember one of these conversations, and for me it was helpful just to think of the next 2, 3 days. I also didn't know. I mean, I roughly knew the tour schedule and where we would go on the map. But at some point, I think after these first 6, 7 shows, it felt more like a tunnel to me. Like, okay, today is this. Do we play tomorrow? Oh no, it's travel day. Okay, then the day after we go there. Do we know something about the hall? But in the end, even that wouldn't say much. In the end, you have to be on stage. When you arrive in the morning, you get to know the piano, and then you see, oh, this will be fun. That's a really nice piano and easy to play, or even inspiring, or it's going to be hard work, which a few times happened as well. It's normal on such a long tour. And then you try to brace yourself, try to get to know the piano. What are the quirks? This is very heavy. How can you mentally prepare to feel fresh despite the difficulties? And then you just go to the hotel, sleep, and get up and travel.
Yeah, I
If
think
I
what
would
also
think each time of how many concerts are coming after this, it's too distracting. It's too, I don't know. It would just distract me.
And someone colleagues once told me, like, okay, when you play a piece more often, you focus every time on something different. So that was also helpful. That for example, playing 27 times the same piece also means like I think your tea is ready. I think.
Sorry.
But 27 times playing the same piece means also like focusing on different things, like not every time the same, not trying to copy the same feeling or trying to copy the same atmosphere you created the night before. That is dangerous, I think. Like when you think like, oh yeah, that was good yesterday, now tomorrow I try the same. No, it's like focusing on something different, and that helped also to keep it fresh. I have to say that the music was fresh, or the music was easier to feel fresh. The dialogues, I have to say, like after show 20, there was a point where I thought I could also puke. No, because
Really?
because like saying then sometimes exactly the same sentence with the same reaction, I mean, of course it's half theatrical, the show, and it's like, okay, I'm surprised that Paul say this, and I'm still surprised that Paul I heard it already 20 times, but I'm still surprised that Paul musically that was never the case, that I had I really, I mean, it's not just saying that, it's luckily that was never
It's
the
probably
case.
because you were playing your pieces and no, but well, I think we are different in that point. Despite me being not surprised, if I believe in the show, and since we do have some variety and the audience reactions are different, and yes, of course, there are scripted parts. It's I don't know if something works well. In the end, you go for at least that's my approach. You go for the process. There's a plan in your head, and there's some variables, and you don't know how they react, but you go with the same openness into the process, even if the result is slightly different, or I think the result naturally is slightly different, and that wouldn't make me feel bad as you describe it at all. I found it musically sometimes more difficult to play yet again the same piece, but only on a few nights. I think I was like, oh, I mean, we discussed sometimes, okay, let me play this, and you played, or we played sometimes different pieces, but then we thought, oh, maybe here, probably overthinking it. We say, for this audience, we haven't played here, maybe we should just play the original version and not vary the repertoire too much. And then we had also discussions for various reasons with the agency, for certain guests coming, wanting to hear certain pieces and so on.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in a way, like, because you played Clair de Lune also 27 times, it's actually like 54 times, because the bars are always double anyway in this piece. So that's even harder. I have to admit.
Yeah, that's the piece I would like first to change, and then during warm up you play your Brahms and Schubert and other things, just to enjoy the piano with different music, and yet you play Debussy again in the evening. Yeah, but it also works well in the piece. It's a good pairing. In the end, you also have
Of
to.
course.
I think as well of the concept of the show, and then my personal mood is not always the first criteria of how you choose the repertoire. But I learned to appreciate how actors, like theatrical actors, must must have a stamina to do the same roles like 50, 80, 100 times over many years if it's a repertoire piece in a certain ensemble, and how they keep that fresh, or opera singers. I think that's really, really amazing.
Yeah, true. Now we
Right?
come to some exotic stories. Like, what was your most I don't know, your funniest part of the tour?
Yeah, what would you say? The
I'm asking
worst, the
you.
best? I'm asking, you ask me.
Yeah.
Um, the funniest part were, I think, some audience reactions. If I think of the shows, because sometimes they react at places where you wouldn't expect it at all, or you at least hadn't experienced for a long time, or you wouldn't expect it that evening, and it's very unusual. And sometimes they wouldn't react at all, which sometimes was also a language barrier problem, I think, where depends on where you go, how experienced they are with hearing things on stage in English. Naturally, for the longer parts, we have a translator on stage. So you say maybe a joke in English, then the reaction comes 7 seconds later after the translation. You have to try with your body language to extend the dialogue a little bit. That's quite a challenge, and sometimes I found it very funny. Uh, um, then when we catch our eyes and something, I think on the meta level, there's some communication happening about reactions or non-reactions when the joke completely fails. Um, that I find that entertaining as much as it maybe not be not as much as it might not be for the audience.
Mm. Yeah, I did. I mean, this is also from our experience. You never know exactly the feeling of the audience. No? I mean, you still have you sometimes have a show where you think like, oh, this audience. I mean, maybe they're absolutely not into it, and then you just feel like at the end of the applause, or not at the end of the applause, at the end of the show, that the applause is so yeah, warm-hearted and so enthusiastic, so that you realize, okay, they were just concentrated before to understand everything or whatever. And sometimes, yeah, you have also a feeling like, no, in this part this is too long. I was doing some extra rounds or something, you know, when I started improvising, and then when the curtain falls, then we talk about like yeah, hey, I no, normally Paul is complaining and then saying like, okay, yeah, hey, this is why did you do this, this is too long, and so on. And then we had the discussions behind the curtain, and yeah, but I think it's always difficult to predict what the audience feels or yeah. And it's, of course, I have to say, like, because sometimes people ask me, okay, was it again like the halls are all super full? And no, they were not super full. I mean, some halls were really good, you know, we had 1,000 people here or there, but other shows were also like in a hall of 1,000 people, maybe 400 people, which feels for our show quite empty, because we need the audience reaction. I mean, it's not like if you're playing 3 Beethoven sonatas. I mean, Paul can compare. I mean, I never do this, but and, so this is a bit different and also difficult when the audience, like, you know, spread in the hall, and then you don't feel them really. But yeah, I think at the end, often I mean, most of the time, like 25 from 27 shows, I would say I had the feeling, no, they had a good time. The audience had a good time. And of course, always after the encore, 当爱情一路牵一起，相信可真可以。Yeah, the Chinese song. Sorry, the Chinese song is something. Yeah, it's then the people know. Yeah, now we are in this pop moment of the piano battle, and I think this for me that was often the kind of little highlight with this. Sometimes when they had the phones on with the lamps and yeah, not the firelighters, we passed them over, but otherwise they would go to prison. No, but I think no, I think that were great moments. I will remember, and I have to work more on my Chinese repertoire. And we should do this also together with more Chinese songs. I mean, for a China tour, I think for a US tour or in Germany, if we ever play here, that would maybe an awkward choice. But I think for China, we learned also a lot of new pieces. I would say we learned new pieces. I mean, I learned a piece because our team was very well prepared, and they gave us always like 2 days before the show. Here is a new piece for this region. And then I think like, yeah, guys, I mean, 2 days before, hello. But like 2-3 times, I think we both were able to catch it up. And then it's great when you play a little piece, for example, in the improvisation round, or when we improvise on themes given by the audience, which is only for this region, not just like a Chinese Jay Chou song or something, but something for the region. I think this is.
I must say, I was impressed the 2-3 times when you asked an audience member to sing something, or they showed you something on the phone, and then they picked it up and played that 3-4 minutes later after playing other pieces in between. And I know that is the most difficult. If you hear it and you play it immediately, okay, but you heard it and then you played other pieces first, and then you remember that piece which I heard only just once a minute before. That was quite impressive, I must say. It's
it's supposed to be a compliment.
It's you could read it like this.
This is because this is like when you start saying in lines. Now with this compliment, I remember our round 3.
Yes.
Before round 3. So I think it starts like when the dialogues come into your daily, when you order a cappuccino at Starbucks and you say like, now it's up to you. Should it be a large or a grande coffee? So I think,
and especially since they are the ones who ask you 12 questions before you're allowed to pay.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think this is the moment of thinking about something new.
Just in brackets about talking about Starbucks. How many decaf Starbucks coffees have you had since you returned?
Since I returned, I think
Yes.
no, not one single Starbucks coffee.
Yeah.
Starbucks. Starbucks is the. I mean, we both know that we don't drink Starbucks in Berlin or but
you don't
of
need
course
to
also in
advertise
the
them.
No, exactly, but of course also in the US, when you are in Wickenburg or somewhere where no one else go, then it's also Starbucks might be the last option and the first and last option. And I think this is also in China. It was sometimes a kind of bubble for me, like feeling not home, but there's an easy listening jazz, and then most of the times, I mean, the Starbucks is not crowded like here. Just a few people, 3-4 people. You know what you get. I mean, the croissant is
the branding
is
consistency totally worked for you.
for that reason, it totally worked. Yeah,
it was certainly more predictable than breakfast scenarios at all the hotels combined. That's very true.
So if we have any people from our Facebook or Instagram community asking what they should do on the 27th show tour in China, let us know. We are happy to. I had already 2-3 people asking me for a private call from Instagram, and people who were interested in what is our management, why are we there, why are we in China, and so it's interesting. I mean, to see. I think also now in China, I mean, China is controversial, I would say. Like, I mean, I know people saying like, okay, I will never go to China. Is not like, for example, let's say France. I mean, I know less people saying that I will never go to France. But on the other hand, I mean, I have to say, like, critically, I mean, of course, when we talk about like China, yeah, and do you go to, are you going to a China tour? First of all, I would say like the good thing is like when you are not for the first time there, we have already friends in China. It's really like, I mean, there are people, some people I haven't seen for a few years, and I was looking forward to see them again, also in Shanghai, and I would love to go to Guangzhou again because there are also some friends from our team, also friends. There are friends, we know them since 2017. We're still in touch even during the pandemic. So it's not like going to China in a kind of tunnel and like, okay, looking at the things like, okay, yeah, but what is not good in China? I mean, you can always find something what is not good in the US, what is not good in Germany, what is not good here, there. And of course, yeah, Chinese food is nice for some weeks, but 9 weeks was also too much for me. But I think at the end is what is important is that that there are people, humans, and when you work with them and at the same time you can also enjoy and have some fun. I think yeah, that is a luxury situation.
Yeah,
And I see sorry.
especially I mean, when you say about messages from other people, especially when you consider the actual reality of a touring schedule, because there's so little time. I also have received also during the tour, you know, ideas. Oh, if you go to that city, you have to visit that
Hmm.
mountain or that area or that museum or that temple, and you think, yeah, that would be great, but it's impossible. It's like the reality is we go to the theater in the morning, we leave at 10, 11 after the show, we go to the hotel, we leave the next morning and travel. If not
9 weeks without alcohol. 9 weeks without alcohol, guys. I mean, yeah. No, I think the first week maybe was a yeah. Okay, you don't
what
follow your
portrait do you give of yourself? Is it so difficult?
yeah. The first week, of course, every day I was like, oh, not a beer, not a glass of white wine. But no, I mean, to be honest, like it was not difficult. But I was always thinking like, yeah, the last night, you know, then I have a beer, or you know, I'm flying back, then champagne and so on. And then once your body gets over this midpoint, yeah, and there was absolutely no desire anymore at the end for alcohol. I didn't drink at the last evening. I didn't drink at my flight back, and now there's nothing left in my life. No, no, but I mean, no alcohol, no cigarettes. Yeah, it's only the music gives me that. No, no, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
No, but what I wanted to say is that the schedule is so tight that the few meetings we had with the friends backstage who visited us or the old team members, that was the great luxury of the few hours of holiday we basically had, or of social events, because the rest is really just traveling with a team and preparing the show on the day.
Yeah,
So
with a team, I have to say, like our traveling was always like we had a car. Paul and I were sitting there, and our direct manager was there, and then the team was in a bus behind us. And of course, that was like for us in the first beginning a little bit like not yeah awkward, or I mean we wanted to have this feeling of, you know, going together with the whole group and so on. But then we learned later that I think that there is a system and this system works, and then you just have to go with the system. And the system was like, there's the car, there is Paul and Andreas sitting exactly. I mean, did we have names on our seats? No, no, because
no, but I think yeah, we can talk about talk about cultural differences. I think it's part of that whole package. You can't compare it. You can't compare this touring experience with touring experience in the States or in Europe, where the whole system works differently. We've never toured with such a big team, so we also wouldn't fit in one car. It was two different companies involved, and without going into all the details, it was very luxurious in that sense because we had different people taking responsibilities for different parts, which is a luxury also when it makes communication sometimes more difficult. But I accepted it despite the difficulties it sometimes posed and the frustrations we all had at some point and within the team. I think it was in the end, I think, not too bad, especially for a first time and with such a big team with all the different personalities. I think we all managed very well. Yeah. And now we know much better how it goes for future tours. It was really, in that sense, a big difference to previous tours. That's why, because there were so many more people involved, and because of the whole setup, the structure of the companies and entities involved.
I think when you said like with all the sometimes communication problems or something, I think there were not problems, but for every other artist or every other person traveling in a team in China, it's good to know that there is a kind of order, like, okay, you ask this person asks this person, this person asks this person, and then the answer goes to this person, goes back to this person, goes back to this person, goes back to you. And if you follow this, I mean, this is unusual, this way, I would say, or not unusual.
You mustn't forget, Andreas. You mustn't. Okay.
No. I want to say, like, of course, there is also kind of order in communication in Germany or in other countries, and I think
it's just we are not used to this. Because we normally, otherwise we don't work in corporations. You and I have never had a boss to report to. I have never had to lead a team. We've never worked in a corporate environment. We have never worked in a company with more than 2 people or 5. I don't know, project-wise.
I had to lead you.
And you had to report to me, and that's so. It's. We are lacking that experience.
Absolutely.
So there's discrepancy between, or let's say the difference between our normal work experience and the corporation anywhere in the world is already very big. And then maybe it's slightly more extreme or culturally different in a place like China, because they have a different culture of communication, different culture of firm hierarchies and so on. But there are always certain rules and expectations of communication and certain hierarchies in every corporate structure and every bigger structure. And it's just, we have not been used to that. And we had to deal with that for the first time in such an extended tour. Yeah. And that was, that was a new experience.
Yeah.
Because we were basically with the same company, or not meeting a new theater with their own communication style every 2 days.
It's for China. What we learned also, it is a bit more difficult after COVID. Like the rules in different theaters are different. The districts are not. It's not everything like so much centralized somehow like before, so that makes it more difficult and more needs more effort and more work for the agents. And so if be generous with your agents, I think, because they deserve it, and keep your agent happy.
That's true. Because they are always in between the chairs, and they really have to juggle a lot of different interests and different focuses. That's very true. That's very true. You never know what the interest of the other people actually is. That's
So
what was the
let us
best.
know.
Well,
Yeah,
what was the worst for you? Whatever you want to
worst.
share.
Um, worst. Um, I think the worst was probably a little bit like it shouldn't sound a little bit lonely, a bit of a lonely feeling, because like we both were in a kind of bubble. We were talking in German and so on because we don't read the Chinese letters or characters and so on. So we were in a bubble, but we have a certain system of how we talk. So everything is used since 10 years. Like there is a way how we talk, about what we talk, and usually this is interrupted by other people. And I think I was missing probably sometimes other kind of talks, also in German language, because this is for me really different than talking in English. So the next podcast will be in German for sure. And this gives a little bit of a lonely feeling. So because there's our bubble, and then there is like, okay, yeah, English and ordering food, and maybe we can do this or that, but it's you don't relax. Yeah, that was probably not the worst. It was not a moment, but this is something which I experienced. And yeah, what was the other question or other
What was the
question?
best? But I mean,
Oh, the
I
best.
can say maybe for me the worst was, I think, managing somehow the sleep deprivation. And it's not that we had a strange schedule that we always had to leave that early in the morning. It's just I didn't manage for quite some time to sleep early enough after shows
Mm.
because of adrenaline, I guess, or whatever. I'm not a psychologist. Whatever else might be the reason. So if you then, after 6, 7, 8 days, you only sleep at 3 or 4 o'clock, and then you get up 7, 8 to travel and so on. Then after 2 weeks, you really feel the lack of sleep. That was for me the biggest challenge. Somehow always reappearing through those 2 months, depending on whether we had actually a free day, which happened occasionally, where we could sleep in. But yeah, otherwise, apart from one bigger moment of frustration with the system there, so to speak, um, I can't really point at one single event. Maybe maybe you remember something. I don't know, but otherwise,
Yeah,
uh,
we had one show which was also not good. I mean, we felt not good. Everything was a bit awkward, and then it's like when I would point out, I think there was one nunning, I think nunning.
yeah, that's what I just mentioned, where I had my
Yeah,
frustrations with the system. But
but
otherwise,
not only the frustration with the system. I think we were the many things came together, and I don't know that could happen the same time, like in Wuxi, where we had one of the best shows, like where I think it was really in so many ways, like fantastic audience reaction.
yeah, yeah, that was very expected,
We were very
unexpected.
satisfied with our play. Like it's not like, I mean, you can play sometimes very good, but it's not like emotionally so 100%, or and then when everything comes together with the good flow of the audience with and then we went backstage, and the team was kind of hugging us because also they felt this was an extraordinary night. So yeah, there are low points, high points in a tour, and mid-range things. Yeah,
Of course, of course. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
but there
Wuxi is
was not
probably.
a there. Yeah, for me there was not a experience of, and then I met a Zen master in between of the bamboo forest, and then we finally had a tea together, and it opened me a new way of my life and interpreting the Scriabin in complete new ways. No, unfortunately not. Hopefully next time. I'm still waiting for it.
So you couldn't point out one of the best moments.
No, the best show was in Wuxi for, I think, not by far, but it was a very, very good show. Or maybe just in
Yeah, I think
back.
everything felt easy, and we didn't. It felt like, okay, we just play another show. There was no special expectations, I think, from our side, and then it was such a welcoming and warm-hearted and apparently moved audience, and yeah, I remember that, of course. But I had, I don't know, lots of little moments of joy, and I was sometimes absolutely stunned by the architecture of halls, for example, and the scenery of some cities. I mean, Chongqing is always a wow effect to me whenever you walk down to the hall, or rediscovering that we had been to Qinzhou when we drove there and we saw the hall. I said, "Oh, we have been here." I never connected. I remember that hall, but not the name of the city, because that was many years ago and we hadn't been back. And little moments, I think.
Or the hall where you said, like, we haven't been there, and then we saw ourselves on a poster inside the hall.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that was the first one, Wenzhou. I'm so sorry, Wenzhou. I had ignored you. I had forgotten you. And then we were there in black and white on the wall.
So
That's
it was
true.
a great tour and a great China tour of 2023. And yeah.
So what will the future bring?
Yeah. We have to work.
We have to work, and certainly we'll be back in China. But what happens, just before we end, what happens to you in the next, let's say, 2 weeks?
In the next 2 weeks, yeah, I will go to Italy and Piano City Festival, no?
In Napoli.
In Napoli, yeah, exactly. And yeah, and then November also, I think 1 week in Spain, and yeah, preparing an Africa tour, and thinking what comes next. And I think is for us is clear that we work on the arrangements more and more, and yeah, and I think it's good to have a roadmap.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I will work on some educational projects. I'm writing actually on a book, 2 books actually, maybe 3, but 2 for now, which I started 2.5 years ago during COVID, and I got back into that. But then writing on all these chapter ideas will also lead to other products, maybe, or expressions of that of those ideas, whether it's a video for YouTube or a little online event. I'm still sorting out, but this is actually at the moment the work I'm focusing on in the next weeks. Before we then meet in late November, December to work on arrangements again. Before that, I will certainly go back into those pieces, and then we hope to know a bit more when we go on tour again. We will be on tour in Korea next year, and certainly China again, hopefully
But
Australia,
we can only
and
meet
Taiwan.
mid-December, no? I mean, it's not interesting for our listeners, our time.
We don't have to discuss the detailed logistics. I know when you're in Africa, but just for audience to understand that we have our phases where we have different projects. I'll be in Spain in between as well. So we have different things, and then in December we come back as piano battle to work on the next bigger project, next basically new show, which we hopefully launch next year, and
which might be not piano battle also, no? Which might be Andreas and Paul. Yeah, you never know.
It'll be us, but we don't know exactly how we place it exactly.
Let us know in the comments. No.
And then we go back into touring. It's certainly next year as well. Again, as I said, in Korea, for sure in Taiwan, hopefully maybe Australia. That's still being sorted out. Good. Yeah, that was the first time we actually spoke since China. So nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Yeah, you look good.
And we'll catch up again in this way, I guess, in like 2-3 weeks, and we'll let you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take care,
So
Paul.
thank you very much for listening, and see you in our next podcast in probably 2-3 weeks. We'll let you know. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.